So we have hyper, excessive. Then we have hypo. Okay, so hypoxia is an example of hypo. Hypothermia is an example. Hypothyroidism, another example. A lot of things we can use with hypo. So if hyper is excessive, hypo means below, too little of something. So with hypoxia, we have too little oxygen in the body. With hypothermia, our body temperature, our heat, thermia, is too low. It's below where it needs to be. Okay, and everybody's body temperature is a little different. Mine is, hovers around 97 degrees, so mine is naturally a little lower than the average. But if it were to drop to like 95, 94 degrees, then I start maybe experiencing a bit of hypothermia, which is never fun. Hypothyroidism, your thyroid isn't producing enough thyroid hormone, which can alter your metabolism and weight and lots of things. Your sensitivity to heat and cold are all influenced by your thyroid. Fun stuff, right? So hypo means below. Okay, inter, like the interosseous membrane. What about the intertubercular groove on the humerus? Grab the skeleton again. If I have the humerus over here, let's see. Intertubercular groove right here between the two tubercles, right here. Intertubercular groove. I think I just kind of gave you the answer, didn't I? The reason it's called the intertubercular groove, and we have interosseous membranes as well. We have an interosseous membrane between the radius and the ulna, holding those bones together. We have an interosseous membrane between the tibia and the fibula, holding those bones together, right? The term inter means between. Okay, so if you see the term inter, not to be confused with intra, inter means between. So the intertubercular groove is the groove between the tubercles, the greater tubercle and the lesser tubercle on the humerus, at the long head of the biceps brachii. The tendon for that muscle passes through. The interosseous membranes between the radius and ulna and tibia and fibula hold those bones together. And when somebody suffers like a high ankle sprain, it actually tears the interosseous membrane between the tibia and the fibula, which is why those can be so painful, right? And really destabilize the entire leg. So inter means between, okay, as opposed to intra, which is our next term. Intra, like intravenous or intradermal injections. What's the difference between the two? Inter means between. Intra means intravenous, like an IV. What do we do with an IV? Intravenous. How do we administer an IV? I know it's not everybody's going to administer an IV, but you still know how it's done, right? So IVs are administered by putting a needle inside a vein. Intravenous, right? Intra means inside. Intradermal injections go inside of something, inside the skin, right? So intra means inside. Intravenous, inside. Okay, moving on. ISO, and we talked about this with our I think it was the muscular word roots, where we have isometric and isotonic, and hopefully you remembered what those are, right? Iso means same or equal. So with an isometric contraction, the muscle is going to have the same length, so the length doesn't change, but the tension in the muscle changes. In an isotonic contraction, like concentric and eccentric contractions, the tension remains the same, isotonic, but the length of the muscle changes. It either shortens or lengthens with a concentric and an eccentric contraction. Okay, so iso means same. Make sure you remember that. Okay, macro, like a macrophage. Okay, macroeconomics. What do you think? Macro. Macro means large, so a large structure in relation to other structures, of course. So a macrophage is a type of cell that's a little bit bigger than the other cells that surround it. Okay, so macro just means big. That's essentially all I think to say. What about mal? Now, again, if you know one of those Romance languages, especially Spanish in this case, you should immediately know what this means. Mal, like malignant, malformation, malaria. Mal means bad. So if something is malignant, it's bad, right? Bad and spreads. Malformation, something isn't formed correctly, it's formed improperly. Bad formation, right? Malformation. Malaria means bad air. Back in the Dark Ages, they thought it was the air giving people malaria, didn't realize it was mosquitoes. Anyway, so mal means bad. So if you see mal, you know something is bad. It's bad, right? Okay, moving on. And Spanish, mal means bad. Mal, bad. Meta, like metaphysis. And I mentioned the metaphysis a little bit earlier. So metaphysis, also called the growth plate, epiphyseal plate, if you will. It's where growth in the bone actually takes place, right? You have one on each end. So bone is growing on each end until you have enough bone tissue to make the bone and stop growing. Okay. So what happens in the bone at the metaphyses? Change takes place. Okay. So meta means change. So the metaphysis, we experience change in the bones, right? The size of the bone is changing because of the metaphyses. Okay. Next up, micro. So if macro means large, micro means small, right? Like a microscope. Microbiology, the study of microscopic life that you cannot really see without a microscope, right? So really small. So microscope, I have one. It's not here for some reason. Not at my desk. Not like I'm using a microscope every day, but it'd be nice to just have out once in a while. Anyway, microscope lets us view microscopic things, sometimes microscopic organisms that we want to see. So micro, small. Think of micro machines, the small little cars, right? Micro machines. Moving on. Mono, like monocyte, or mononucleosis, or monorail. I live in Nevada. Las Vegas has a monorail. And I think of the Simpsons episode, a monorail. I'm not going to sing anymore. I do not want to subject you to that, but you get the idea, right? So a monorail runs in one direction. It might run back and forth, but it's just one rail, right? So it goes up and down that one rail. Monocyte, one cell. Mononucleosis, one nucleus. It's viral infection. Anyway, so mono means one. Okay, neo. Don't say the Matrix. Please don't say Matrix. I know we all love Keanu. Don't say Matrix. Neo, like neopathic or neonatal. If something is neopathic, path means disease. What type of disease is it? What type of disease is a neopathic disease? Neonatal refers to infants, right? How I'm trying to come up with a way to say it without giving you the answer immediately. I can't do it. Okay, so something that's neopathic is a new disease. Neonatal refers to infants. They are new to the world, right? They're new people. It's essentially it. So you see neoplasm is another one, new growth. There are, if you see the term neo, that means it's something that's new, okay? Moving on, pan, like a pandemic or panoramic picture. So if I were to take a photograph, a panoramic photograph, I'm using my cellular telephone here, how much of the environment am I taking a picture of? Small amount? Panoramic? Taking a large amount, right? Not just a large amount. A pandemic involves how many peoples, how many cultures, how many parts of the world are involved in a pandemic? Think of the term Pangea. When the Earth was millions and millions of years older than right now, all the continents were together in what's called Pangea. That means all, right? So all of the continents were together. A pandemic involves all the world, okay? A panoramic photograph, I'm taking a picture of all of the environment, right? Everything around me, all of it, everything I can see, panoramic. Okay, so pan means all. Moving on, para, not two, not a pair of, para. Like parathyroid. Where are the parathyroids in relation to the thyroid? What do you think? Where are the parathyroids in relation to the thyroid? They are beside the thyroid. So parathyroids beside the thyroid. Para means beside. Okay. Moving on. Peri. P-E-R-I. So there's not para, peri. Okay, like the pericardium. I think I talked about that a little earlier. Pericardium. What about periosteum? Periosteum bone. So peri means around. So the periosteum is around the shaft of the long bone, right? The pericardium is around the heart, the serous membrane that surrounds the heart and helps to protect the heart quite a bit, except for the inside of the heart. But the pericardium around the heart. Okay, paramecium is fascia that's around muscles. Okay, that's essentially it. Peri, around. Okay, next up, poly, like polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. Poly, what do you think? So this is talking about an amount of something, right? If somebody has polycystic ovarian syndrome, as opposed to something like monocystic ovarian syndrome, I'm not sure if there's a thing, monocystic ovarian syndrome, polycystic versus monocystic, excuse me. Polycystic means many. So in polycystic ovarian syndrome, somebody might have many cysts in an ovary. And cue that photo now. Again, here's my wife's ovary with a lot of cysts in it. She had PCOS. So they just took it out. Just get it out of there. And it's about the size of a softball. It was pretty big when the ovary is supposed to be, about the size of an almond. Pretty big. Anyway, moving on. Pseudo. Like pseudoephedrine or pseudoscience. If something is pseudoscience, there are things I think are pseudoscience out there that other people believe in. I'm not going to dive too far into that. Pseudoephedrine is a type of medication that mimics ephedrine, but it is not really a ephedrine. Pseudo means false. Okay, so pseudoscience is considered false science. Okay, pseudoephedrine is it acts like ephedrine, but it's not ephedrine. Okay, so it's false. Okay, moving on. Retro, like the kidneys. The fun thing about the kidneys are in a retroperitoneal position. So you have the abdominal peritoneum and the abdomen surrounding all of these organs except the kidneys. So where are the kidneys in relation to the abdominal peritoneum? I can grab my skeleton here. So the kidneys right back against the floating ribs. And then you have the peritoneum right here. So kidneys are back against the ribs. Then you have the peritoneum. The kidneys are behind the abdominal peritoneum, right? They are back compared to the peritoneum. Okay, so retro means behind. Think of like retro clothing, right? Clothing from behind, from in the past, right? So retro means back, behind. So the kidneys are behind the abdominal peritoneum. Okay, moving on. Semi, like semimembranosus. Semimembranosus. Now, why would a muscle be called semimembranosus? Well, if you were to look at the muscle, you'd see it is half kind of tendon and half muscle, semimembranosus, right? Membranous tendon type tissue. So semi means half. Okay. Yeah, just half. So hemi and semi both mean half. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things. With prefixes, just like kind of word roots, you can have multiple terms meaning the same thing. Just wait till we get to suffixes. You'll see even more of them. Okay. Moving on. Sub. Like subscapularis. Like subway or submarine. What do all of these things do? Where are they located? Like subscapularis. Where is subscapularis located in relation to the scapula? It is considered under it, right? Submarines are boats that go underwater, submarine. Subways go underground. Sub sandwiches go into my belly. But it's a stupid joke. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm a dad. I'm allowed to make dad jokes. Leave me alone. Moving on. Super, like superior or supra or superior. That's a good example. Superior, because there's a super and then there's a supra. I don't want to jump ahead here. So super, like superior, means okay. What's the opposite of superior? Inferior. Inferior is below. Superior is above. Okay, so if something is superior to another structure, it means it's above it in some way, right? So the aorta or the atria of the heart are superior to the ventricles of the heart. The ventricles are inferior to the atria, which are superior. Okay. So super, above. What about supra? Like supraspinatus, supraglenoid tubercle, a couple examples. What do you think? Supra. So the supraspinatus, almost grabbed the skeleton. I'm like, wait, I have a scapula right here. So supraspinatus is named after this thing and where it is in relation to this thing. Supraspinatus, the muscle, right up here. Okay. So that means it is above the spine of the scapula, supraspinatus. Okay, so Supra also means above, and just like a slight tweak to the superior prefix, but essentially it's a supraspinatus, right? The supraglenoid tubercle, this little point right there, right at the top. This is the glenoid fossa, the supraglenoid tubercle, right up here, right above that, above the glenoid fossa. Okay, so supra means above. Okay, what about sim? Now let's think about a couple terms that we might find with sim, like symbiosis, symphony. What about? Grab that. Why I keep putting it down? Just hold on to it. What about this structure right here? The pubic symphysis, right? What does the pubic symphysis do with the pubic bones? What does it do for the pubic bones? Pubic symphysis holds the pubic bones together. Okay, think of a symphony. It's a bunch of people with instruments playing together. Okay, symbiosis, symbiotic relationship, two organisms living off of each other, living together off of each other. Okay, so sim means together, like the pubic symphysis holds the pubic bones together, holds them together. Okay, what about syn? Like a synergist or a syndrome. Yeah. We have okay, a synergist. So we have an agonist, right? Muscle that performs an action. We have a synergist. What does a synergist do with an agonist? Helps to perform the same action. Okay. A syndrome is where we have signs and symptoms occurring together. Okay. Syn means together as well. So sim and syn both mean together. Okay. Let's throw that back over there. Okay, moving on. Tachy. What does tachy mean? Now think of one of the very first terms we had was brady or braddy, like bradycardia. It's a form of arrhythmia where the heartbeat is too slow, right? Way too slow. Tachycardia is the opposite. The heartbeat, the heart rhythm goes way too fast. Okay, so tachy means rapid. So tachycardia is a rapid heart rhythm. Heart rhythm's just going way, way, way too fast. Way faster than it should. It's not a good thing. Right? You want to control the heart rhythm so that you're able to get enough oxygen in the blood and get rid of enough carbon dioxide from the blood and be able to pump the oxygen throughout the body effectively and efficiently. You need to be able to do that. So your heart rhythm going way too fast can be a problem for sure. Okay, so tachy means rapid tachycardia, rapid heart rhythm. Okay, and finally trans, like transdermal, transient, like a transient ischemic attack. Let's talk about transdermal, though. Transdermal medication might be a really good example of this. So trans means through. So if you were to apply transdermal medication, I apply transdermal medication to my skin, it goes through the skin into the rest of my body, and that's how it's able to be absorbed and enter into the body and actually influence what's going on in the body. Okay, so trans means through. And I think that just about wraps up our prefixes.